Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our live demo webinar. In today's session, we're going to be spending our time talking about how success teams use Front to improve the quality of their customer relationships, ultimately to help drive better retention and long-term success. My name is Teresa, and I'm part of the product marketing team, and I'm joined by Bernadine, a solutions engineer who will also be our demo wizard today. And we're so excited to have you here. But before we dive in, here's a quick preview of what you can expect. We'll first spend a couple of minutes sharing what we've seen among success teams and the value that Front brings. The majority of the time will be spent with Bernadine, who will be doing a live demo walkthrough with some common scenarios and workflows specific to success teams. And of course, this session is for you, so please feel free to drop any questions into the questions panel. We'll be monitoring this space throughout, and then we also have dedicated time at the end to answer any of your questions before we wrap up. So with that, let's get into it. So one of the biggest challenges for success teams is maintaining that high-touch, personalized service at scale. And we know that this only becomes harder and harder to achieve as your number of customers grow. And a large part of this challenge is due to the customer communication iceberg. While a customer request may initially seem straightforward at surface level, it can quickly get out of hand, meaning, the request may jump across multiple different team members, across many different teams, each with only a partial view of the customer. So for example, if we say that someone reaches out to you as a success manager, depending on what that topic is, you may have to loop in someone from the support team if it's something that is really technical, or having to involve the product team if it's really focused around user or product feedback. And so as organizations scale, this communication becomes really scattered across multiple places. And then on top of that, we also have the departmental tools that different teams will use. For example, we see success teams primarily engaging with customers via email, maybe sales through outreach, and then support teams through a dedicated ticketing system. And then internally, there are tools like Slack and Teams, which we use to coordinate internally about specific customer requests. And so essentially, the key takeaway here is that whenever a customer does reach out, it can actually kick off an extremely complex workflow that requires a lot of cross-team collaboration with context that lives in many different tools, which is definitely not a great way for things to get done. So if we start to look at how disjointed communication is a blocker to extraordinary customer experiences and how that can actually ripple through every single interaction, leading to missed revenue and expansion opportunities, we know that customers have a lot of different choices out there. And simply put, if their expectations aren't met, they can easily go to a different competitor or find an alternative solution. This also leads to poor customer retention and satisfaction scores. So if you're dealing with low CSAT or NPS ratings, then churn will likely become much higher. And that can also hurt your reputation short-term and long-term as a business. Poor communication will also lead to fragmented collaboration and siloed context. And so as a customer, we know that it's extremely frustrating when you're being passed among different teammates and having to constantly repeat yourself. And in some cases, if we get multiple teammates working on the same request, they can actually send out duplicate or even conflicting messages. Next, we have low revenue coverage per teammate. And this is a metric that is closely tied to profit and often used to measure the overall efficiency of a success team. So if we look at, if revenue coverage per teammate is low, then that can actually indicate that more work needs to be done to ensure that all of the company's customers are being well supported. And then last but not least, we also have subpar customer and employee experience. So success teams are working directly with customers. And if they're constantly buried in work and fighting fatigue, then that can actually cascade into the interactions that they're having with their customers in a negative way. So what can Front do for success teams? Front is a customer communication hub that looks, feels, and acts like email with the automation and insights of a CRM, such as Salesforce. You're able to maintain the personalization of email while getting a lot more power and functionality behind it. And Front gives you one place to centralize and unify all of this context with your most used systems without ever having to leave a familiar, easier to use interface. And so this is how Front actually helps success teams to deliver tailor-made service at scale for all of their customers, which in turn influences customer loyalty. And so success teams use Front to build more meaningful relationships with their customers that in turn help to grow the business, increase efficiency, and create customer loyalty. When it comes to growing the business, the focus really here is to increase customer retention, minimize churn risk, and expand revenue coverage per teammate. This is where the quality of service and your ability to build a solid relationship with your customers is particularly important here because of higher value customers and the revenue that they bring. The second piece is because success teams are so collaborative, their productivity depends on how efficient they are. And whether that's automating away the busy work, making handoffs seamless, or improving response times, all of the gains in the efficiencies here will only help success managers to do their job better. Plus, they can better use this time to focus on what really matters, which is the customer relationship. And when that relationship is well managed, this can actually lead to increased customer loyalty. Loyalty and trust do take time to build, but when you're able to treat everyone like a VIP, reduce SLA breaches, and increase overall satisfaction scores, those are all things that are steps in the right direction. And so oftentimes we actually see success and support teams get bundled together into a ticketing system. And while both function to help the customer, how the work actually gets done can look quite different. So ticketing works great for support teams, but maybe not so much for success. In fact, we actually hear a lot of success teams wanting to have a separate tool from support because those workflows are so different. And so to cut to the chase, ticketing is not designed for success teams because they're really focused on making their customer relationships more personal. For success managers who primarily work out of email to get work done, this means that they should be meeting their customers where they are, not the other way around. If customers are reaching out via email, then the replies should also be sent back in email rather than forcing them into a ticket. The second piece is the loss of personalization. Customers are not tickets, nor should they ever feel like one. This is where tickets may come off as impersonal, one-off transactions. The third reason is that tickets also have limited customer context. When context is siloed to a specific ticket or a case number, that actually lives within a separate dedicated tool. And this makes it really tough to collaborate internally, especially if the other teammates that you're working with don't have access to the ticketing platform. Also, ticketing will fuel the chaotic tool proliferation. And what I mean by this is that when you have work and communications spread across multiple tools, this requires a lot of context switching between email, maybe an internal messaging platform, and ticketing. And this creates more margin for error, which can actually add up to a lot of wasted time. Next, tickets may not always be super intuitive to use. Whenever there's a new tool, both customers and employees have to spend dedicated time learning how to use the new platform. And then last but not least, we can also see complexity being built over time. So this is having to skip the need for a certified admin. A lot of times we see for more advanced configurations, you may actually have to tap into developer resources or even write customer code or custom code just to ensure that you have the things exactly how you want it to be. And so today we have over 6,500 customers using Front to deliver tailor-made service at scale for all of their customers. If you want to learn more, there's a lot of really cool logos here. I'd encourage you to check out their stories on our website. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Bernadine to walk us through a live demo. Bernadine, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Teresa. Okay, so this is Front, a customer communication hub used by success teams to offer tailor-made service at scale. Delight customers with extraordinary experiences with services that are a cut above the rest. Front is designed to look and feel like email, so you still have the personalization of an inbox with the added insights and automation of a CRM. So to orient you in Front, we'll move from left to right here. On this first left-hand panel, this is what contains your personal workspace, which is where you can connect a personal inbox. For instance, my Bernadine at inbox, as well as a team workspace, which is where you can connect your success at or support inboxes. Bringing my personal and shared inboxes together really eliminates the need to work out of several email tabs to juggle email accounts with separate logins. Now, the second and third panels here show a conversation list preview and then the expanded conversation view itself. The integrations panel on the right-hand side here is where you'll find any integrations with your external systems that have been connected to Front. So Front enables you to make all of your customer touchpoints exceptional, so every customer feels like a VIP. And that's how the teams at CultureAmp, Lydia, and Shopify provide tailor-made service at scale and build trust with their customers. So throughout this demo, you'll see how Front helps success teams drive higher retention rates attributed to higher net promoter scores, expand revenue coverage per teammate, and streamline collaboration to deliver the best responses to customers every time. So let's dive into our team inboxes. Imagine I am a customer success manager in a pooled service model managing messages that come into our success at alias. Looking at our conversation list, there are two cues to really focus on here: unassigned and assigned. Unassigned conversations simply mean that they do not have a dedicated owner yet, whereas assigned conversations are clearly being worked on by a teammate. Assignments drive accountability and prevent requests from falling through the cracks. They completely remove any sort of ambiguity or guesswork when it comes to knowing who on your team is actually working on what. For example, this inquiry about adding new users has been assigned to me, and I can actually view this conversation in the Assigned to Me section of my personal workspace as well. This allows me to better prioritize my work and really use my personal workspace counter as a to-do list of actionable items. Now, if you're wondering how this conversation was assigned to me, that's where some of Front's behind-the-scenes automation magic comes into play. I've seen many success teams use round-robin assignment rules in a pooled service model to help distribute and assign conversations in a rotating fashion across the team. By establishing clear ownership and increased accountability, Morningside Translations, a global provider of IP and translation services, handles nearly 3 million customer requests while saving $630,000 per year in productivity improvements. So the next thing I'll point out here are conversation tags. This conversation in particular has a couple: VIP and SLA warning. Now, tags are super versatile and give you a clear way to organize and prioritize conversations by project, by client, or even by urgency. While they can manually be added to conversations, you can also add them automatically. For example, this conversation from our customer at final production automatically gets tagged with this VIP tag. And that's because it's based on the account's revenue value and the account's tiering. Tags can also be used to trigger automated actions and next steps. For instance, this SLA warning tag appears when conversations have gone unreplied to for a specified period of time that's in accordance with your team's response time policies. You simply just set your response time goals in Front, and then Front will take care of surfacing the urgent conversations before breaches actually happen. So focusing on Layton's message here, she's asking about new features, but this feature is actually only included on our enterprise offering. So I need to confirm that her company is actually on our enterprise plan. Now, instead of looking up this information in a separate tab in Salesforce, I can actually just open up the Salesforce plugin or any CRM that you're using for that matter to view the account record. While I'm looking at these Salesforce records here, a lot of great information is at my fingertips. I can find the account manager, I can update the opportunity, or even add notes. Just one more thing to add here, which I'll introduce in a few minutes. Front recently announced a new suite of account level functionalities that give you key customer context at a glance, all right within your inbox. So I'm super excited to show you some more of our latest updates later in this demo. Now, since this account is a VIP customer, I'll actually mention Michaela, who, if you'll remember, was the account manager for this particular account, just for visibility. Now, these internal comments and conversations between me and Michaela will not be visible to our customer. They will stay internal to front and visible only to front users. But now, as I write back, I can actually share my draft here with Michaela, just in case she wants to add anything. And this really helps us to collaborate on a response together, all within the same conversation thread. And again, all of this context, this internal comments, the draft, the response that I'll ultimately send will stay actually in this conversation thread. And that way, I don't have to create a follow-up conversation in a separate messaging tool to drive alignment or get extra support. So handoffs between teammates can now be smoother than ever. So once my response is done here, I'll go ahead and click Send and Archive, and this will send out my response and ultimately move the conversation into an archived state. Archiving conversations will drive your inbox counters down, helping you to achieve an inbox of 0. It's like crossing an item off of your to-do list. So let's jump back into our success team inbox here and tackle the unassigned queue. Looking at this conversation, I will assign it to myself. But now that I'm looking at this actually might require technical support. So before I pass this on to our support team to triage, I'll just send out a holding response. So Elias knows that we've received this request and someone will be working on it shortly. Now to hand off this request, I'll simply just drag it and drop it into support's team inbox. Notice that when this happens, support's inbox counter increases by 1. To double check that the conversation is still intact after moving it to a different team's inbox here, I can simply just click into the conversation and we have full visibility into the full conversation thread. All teammates that have access to support's team inbox will have this same visibility. And if I were, or if those teammates were to expand the audit trail, they'll have a clear understanding of all of the conversation's time-stamped actions as well. This allows for better transparency all around and eliminates any inefficiencies that come from having to send or respond to separate Slack or Teams messages asking for additional context. When success teams only have partial visibility into requests like this, a lot of time is wasted having to piece together information that's siloed across different tools and teams. Hootsuite, a social media management platform, deployed Front to actually help streamline cross-functional collaborations, specifically between their success and customer service teams. So they're now able to seamlessly pass conversations between teams and make sure that they're being handled by the right team members, which was a pain point that they experienced with their previous help desk ticketing system. So jumping back into my assigned to me queue here, let's pretend to fast forward a couple days. You'll notice that our friend Elias at Audit Lawyer has reached out again, but this time he's reached out directly to my personal email address. Even though this message was only addressed to me, conversations from a private inbox can be moved into a shared team inbox. Because Front is rooted in the universal platform of email, there are huge gains in operational efficiency and cross-functional collaboration as work is centralized in just one platform. For example, we just saw how conversations can manually be moved across team inboxes to be handed off and handled by different teams. In this instance, I've set up a rule to automatically move all of the customer-facing conversations from my personal inbox into my team's shared success inbox, and then have these conversations be automatically assigned back to me. This builds better transparency, accountability, and communication across the team, since conversations are no longer siloed in my personal inbox. Now, my broader team can easily step in to help out on more complex requests or help cover if I'm not available or out of office. This is exactly how Shopify's merchant success team structured their communications. With nearly 700 shared inboxes across 400 Shopify teammates who handle millions of merchant requests, they're able to focus on building excellent experiences instead of wasting time manually organizing conversations into folders for triage. Okay, so let's focus back on this conversation. The first ask to provide more video resources is definitely something that I can do. But the second part here, asking about an update on the Salesforce integration issue, requires a follow-up on my end from our support team. When I expand the contact details plugin here, it gives me a unified view of the particular contact's information, as well as the recent conversations from shared inboxes that I have access to. Now, this is so useful because now I can quickly locate the original conversation that's with the support team. And then taking a closer look at this conversation, I can see that an active bug tag has been applied and that support actually has left a comment with the most recent update. So not only did I not have to context switch to gather this information, but now when I go to reply to Elias, I have all of the most recent updates that I need. I have visibility that the support team is actively working to fix the issue and will respond to the original thread with next steps first thing tomorrow. Again, I didn't have to switch over to a help desk or ticketing platform or wait for a separate follow-up from support. So much efficiency is gained here, which ultimately allows success teams to grow revenue coverage per teammate. And I'll just go ahead and send that message off. Now, this last workflow will demonstrate how success and account managers with a dedicated book of customers can really use Front to help deliver top-tier customer experiences. So it looks like Oscar here, who's one of the account managers that I work with, has looped me into one of his accounts to help with new customer onboarding. We know that delivering quality customer experiences at scale can be challenging, partly due to the fragmentation of customer data and where the customer interactions actually happen, largely in email. So circling back to the accounts that I mentioned earlier, this is one of our newest features, which allows me to get holistic bird's eye view of our customers' context. Now, this is super helpful as businesses scale and as customer touchpoints start to cascade across different teams, because having this customer context directly in front keeps everyone aligned and allows them to become a true expert on the customer that they're communicating with at the moment. So to craft a response here, I'll first move Oscar to CC, and I'll actually start with a standardized message template for onboarding pre-work. Message templates allow you to respond faster to inbound messages, lessen the repetitive nature of frequently asked questions, and give your team a unified voice. So this message contains a couple of variables here just to help customize the note, but I can also, of course, always add in my own personalization before sending it off, because who likes to receive generic messages? For Bubble's success team, templates are key to getting a jump start on responses and helping reduce response times to 15 minutes for priority issues and 2 hours for general inquiries. So now that I'm done here, I'll go ahead and just send and snooze this conversation for a time, maybe next week. Now that the conversation is out of sight, I can move on to other tasks that come up until that message actually pops back into my inbox if the customer responds, or if that snooze timer that I put on it expires and allows the conversation to boomerang back into my inbox. Okay, so let's move into Front's analytics. This is where we can measure workflow productivity and get insight into communication trends. Analytics gives you the visibility to understand how to optimize your team's time, reach personal goals and team goals, and deliver better customer experiences. You can also click into any of these metrics to take a closer look at the associated conversations, helping you see perhaps where the customer's experience could be improved, or allow you to take notes on great customer interactions. Reports and analytics are quite customizable in terms of how granular you'd like to get. So as you can see here, we have key metrics like the number of messages sent, average reply times, and average handle times. And you can even filter these reports to apply them to particular inboxes, to particular teammates, or even particular accounts. With the new account level metrics, you can easily understand the level of service that each customer is receiving by having access to, again, the response times, to SLA achievement, message volumes, and so much more. So preparing for your next quarterly business review has never been so easy. Now, moving on to our tags report here, this one offers you insight into the types of conversations that your team is having. So as a team manager, I can easily see the number of conversations tagged with, let's say, VIP. If you remember, this tag is automatically applied to conversations with our top customers, like final production. So I'm able to view the average response time and average handle times again with these customers. And these can be used as a reflection of the quality of service that's being provided. Now, taking a look at our SLA report, you can easily track things like the number of breaches and warnings, or the average SLA breach time. And again, this helps you to measure against your team's desired response time goals, giving you the level of visibility that you need to really understand where communications can be improved. Finally, let's jump into our customer experience report. So to gather your customer sentiment and feedback, Front has a CSAT survey that can be embedded in signatures, it can be added to message templates, or it can just be sent out as a survey link. While CSAT is more of a reflection of particular interactions, it could still be leveraged to generally help boost customer loyalty and overall NPS ratings. You're even able to compare these survey scores over time, which can help you understand or even predict NPS trends. Because at the end of the day, Front is all about building better, more meaningful customer relationships at scale. So to wrap up here, with Front, you can enable your success teams to deliver a VIP experience to each of your customers for every communication. They'll drive greater retention rates and value from existing businesses, grow revenue coverage per teammate, and streamline collaboration while also working happier. There's no reason you shouldn't be wowing your customers with great success. The quality of your customers' interactions, no matter how big or how small, can really make or break a relationship. And Front provides your teams with the visibility, context, and alignment they need to delight customers, inspire trust, and create opportunities for growth. All right, back to you, Teresa.
Awesome. Thanks, Bernadine. That was a wonderful live demo. So with that, as I mentioned, we are now at our live Q&A portion. I've seen a couple of questions come in. So again, a friendly reminder, if you have any, feel free to drop them in. And so with that, we'll get started. So we have a question from Jenny here. Do you integrate with Outlook or Gmail, or would a team need a Front email? If we respond to an email directly from Outlook, will that get tracked in Front as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you can think of Front as an email client. So if you have email addresses that are hosted or provided by like Office 365 or a Gmail account, those are actually the inboxes, the addresses that you'll connect into front. So you're not replacing your email addresses with like a front email. You're just using front as the way to access these emails that are hosted by Gmail or Exchange, Microsoft, etc. And then for the second part of that, with Gmail accounts and particularly with Office 365 accounts, Front offers a two-way sync. So any messages that are sent or received in your Outlook or Gmail client will also be received in Front.
Great. Next question from Sarah. When you move conversations to different inboxes, does the from email address change as well? So for example, if a personal inbox email is moved to support, does the support team's response come from the support alias?
That's a great question. So that is something that can be customized per your team's workflow. So like we saw in the workflow that I had shown where I got a message in a personal inbox and I moved it into a team inbox just to increase visibility. Anyone on my team can now respond to that particular message, even though it was addressed to me. They won't be able to respond using my personal email address, but they have options. They can respond with their own personal inbox, or if we have like a team address set up, like a success at alias or a support at alias, they can also be set up to be able to respond from that alias as well.
Great. Next question from Carrie. You showed a link to Salesforce to view CRM data. Does Front have any CRM functionality on its own?
Yeah, so looking at the contact details and again, the account details, which is one of the newest features that we just rolled out, you can see that you can add custom fields that are housed in Front. So you can add things like whoever the account manager is, the tier, company size, etc. And this account information can be visible across the whole team.
Great. I just maximized your window because I think you were showing your screen.
Oh, gotcha. Yes, I was. Thanks.
Great. All right. Next question, also related to contacts. Where did the contact information come from? Does it come from a CRM app integration, or does someone have to enter it in Front, or can it be done either way?
Yeah, so there are definitely a couple of ways that you can get contact information into Front. Front will automatically, whenever you get a email or a message that comes in, if the email isn't already a contact, you'll notice that Front still gathers like the email address or whatever address was written in, and you can actually add that as a contact into Front's contact record for, again, the whole team to have visibility into. Additionally, we also have an API that you can leverage to kind of port over contacts if you have them stored in a separate database or in something like Salesforce. So plenty of ways to get contact details into this particular Front view. Just depends on whether you already have that contact details stored in like an external system, or if you want to rely on Front to kind of automatically keep track of new contacts and have the team go in and update additional information about the contact as they have conversations with them.
Great. And then now pivoting a little bit over to integrations. Do you integrate with Intercom? There's a team that's using Intercom for their support chat, but they also want to use it for a knowledge center for support articles and sending out marketing campaigns. And then more broadly, Bernadine, if you're able to touch on what CS platforms that we also integrate with.
Yeah, absolutely. So Intercom is definitely one of them. We have an integration with Intercom. And in terms of the support chat, that's one of the channels that we can bring into Front, right? So we really just displayed here like email interactions, but you can also bring in chat messaging for the team to handle. And then the next part of that question was asking about using that integration for like a knowledge-based support support articles center. So that's not going to be part of the out-of-the-box integration that Front has with Intercom. It's mainly just supporting the messaging channels. So if you still have Intercom as a surface, that's certainly something that Front can work in tandem with. So you can think of Front as the place that you're really managing the customer communications. And then if you're using Intercom to kind of host those like knowledge-based articles, support help articles, that would be its separate platform. And then in terms of the other CS integrations that we have, we do have a handful out of the box. Some of the more popular ones, like we've just seen, are Salesforce. We have an integration with HubSpot, with Gainsight, with Zoho. But on top of that, if there are particular platforms that you're using that Front doesn't have an out-of-the-box integration with, again, we offer a very, very open API. So if you're interested in developing a custom plugin to add to this integrations panel here, that's certainly something that can be accomplished as long as that external system, that CS platform, has an open API that we can leverage.
Great. Awesome engagement from the audience. And so I think, we'll probably tackle 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up here. But then again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to get your questions answered. So the last 2, if a contact email thread is assigned to a teammate and a new email is submitted in a new thread from that same contact, will it assign back to the same teammate if it's round robin?
Let me just read that question again. If contact email thread is assigned to a teammate and a new email is submitted in a new thread, will assign? No, so it'll come in as a separate conversation, but based on the round robin rules that you have set up, like you mentioned, it could be assigned to a different teammate. And in that case, teammates could manually assign it back to the original teammate who's handling the first response. But again, if you're looking at like the contact details, you can see, the exact timestamp of when conversations come in. And if they had been assigned to particular team members, you're also able to see just in this view who they've been assigned to. So perhaps it's an opportunity to, leverage the internal comments and at mentions to, give another teammate visibility into an ongoing conversation with this same contact. And then similarly, the round robin rules can be very customizable. So if you have, particular accounts or particular contacts that you always want them to go to just a handful, like a subset of the team, you can add additional criteria to those round robin rules so that, if a inquiry comes in from, let's say, Hector here, let's only assign it to one of these 3 teammates versus like the whole team of, a couple dozen. And that way there could be more collaboration between those teammates in terms of, when they get a new inquiry from this particular contact, how they handle that or how they triage that together.
Great. And then last question for today, does your integration with Salesforce have a 2-way sync for contacts?
It does. So as we noticed here, when I pulled up the Salesforce record, it's automatically taking into account the sender of the messages. So that's where, the contact record comes into view here. And then, of course, all of the other associated records, so account opportunities, etc.
Great. Thank you for all of your expertise and answering all those questions, Bernadine.
Great questions. Thanks, everyone.
Yes. And so with that, we want to thank you again for joining us in our live demo today. We really enjoyed our time with you, and we hope that you found this session very useful. And with that, we're going to close out this session, but we hope to talk to you guys soon. Thank you for your time again. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.